Hello, everyone. I hope that everyone is doing great. Now, this is a presentation that I have planned for the 17th of April, 2022 for the Foreign Language Forum exhibition. Now, this recording is for those who cannot attend due to traveling distance or due to any sort of illness. So this is going to be available for everyone online. Having said this, let's get down to business. Allow me to share my screen for you. Okay. And we are set to go. All right, so today's presentation has to do with helping your students build a love of reading. Yes, this is a presentation that I really like, and I've used a lot of practical applications that we'll be discussing throughout this presentation with my students. So without further ado, let's get things rolling. Now, first of all, a lot of you have this question: why are there students who dislike reading? Well, this is a question that we ask ourselves many times. Well, let's try to split this presentation into three themes. After the three themes and analyzing them, we will look into some practical applications and ideas to help your students invest themselves in this. First theme, ability. Second theme, interest. And the final one, mindset. We'll be focusing this presentation on these three factors. So let's start with ability. What does ability refer to? Well, first of all, we will be referring to the command of the language. Okay, if the student has the capacity to understand what he or she is reading. Now, I like sharing stories during my presentations, and I'm going to share a story with you. This happened around 4 or 5 years ago at a language school that I used to teach at. So I have this wonderful habit of, trying to stimulate, my kids and inspiring them. Come on, guys, let's go to the library, to the school library, and let's borrow like a few books. So I try to excite them, and they run down the stairs, and we go to the library, and they start choosing a book that they kind of, find an attraction to. Now, the thing is that one of my students, who was quite an introvert, she whispered to my ear that she wants a book about dinosaurs. And I'm like, yes, we do have a book about dinosaurs in the library. It's something that her eye caught a few days ago. So the thing is, she grabbed the book, she flipped through the pages, she was so excited, she loved what she was looking at, and she took the book to the secretary. Now, the thing is that the secretary of the school had no such intention, but upon looking at the book, she said that this level is not for you. It's a very low level. So my student, she literally lowered her head, she left the book, and she ran out of the office. So I was, running after her. It was a very bad experience. Now, the thing is, what I'm trying to say here is that do not limit your students' choices to their attending level. Yes, the student wasn't that, great of a student. I don't want to use stereotypes and completely diminish her skills. The thing is that she wasn't, the brightest in the class. And the thing is that, yes, we do have the CEFR, which actually, assists us in, categorizing our books according to headwords, difficulty and level, grammar structures, lexical complications, idioms, etc. Now, the thing is that if a student is interested in borrowing a book that is not her level or his level, just let the kid, borrow it. We do not want to, obscure their train of thought, their interest, and their motivation. Now, having said this, when we're talking about ability, there are students who have a limited command of the language. Okay, based on my example, they are struggling with vocabulary, idioms, expressions, and of course, there's the inability to comprehend grammar structures. And it's what I just mentioned, that the target level is too demanding. Now, we should not leave out students with learning difficulties and kids with special educational needs. The way that a student, reads a book depends on the way his mind is processing, ideas and thoughts. Okay, so we have to be very inclusive in our classroom and respect the way that each student perceives the material that we have given him. Now, let's focus on everyone's strong points, since we're talking about abilities and what each student is capable of. First of all, students excel at various skills. Some students are better at writing, some students are better at listening, speaking. So having said this, okay, we do not want to limit their potential. And we have to figure out, because we're their teachers, okay, we have to figure out what they're good at. So let's look at this little diagram. You've probably seen this before. Okay, the skills that are used in the English language. We have the productive skills, writing and speaking. Please bear these in mind. We're going to use them later on in this presentation. And of course, we have the receptive skills, listening and reading. So you can see that everything is connected. If you want to focus on your kids reading, there are many ways of doing this by, acquiring the other skills and implementing them during the lesson and inspiring kids to do that. So let's move on. First of all, try to use audio recordings. Now, we are still in the segment of abilities. How are we going to enhance their abilities? First idea, audio. Now, I'm going to say something before moving on. There's a reason why all the publishers, okay, I'm an author, I've been writing books for more than a decade. There's a reason why all the publishers have, their materials transferred to audio format. Publishers have, audiobooks. We have, listening segments. The audio recordings are tailored to the text that we are presenting in class. And the reason behind this is to connect all these skills that I previously mentioned. Please use the audio segments, the audio recordings. I've seen teachers who say, nope, I want them to develop their reading skills. I want them to read aloud, and I want them, to speak fluently. Yes, you'll do that, but you should also have them, listen to the audio segments before moving on. MP3 format, CD format, for those of you who still use CD players, there's so many options available. Now, combine them with read-along books. Okay, I work for an international publisher, I'm very proud of it. And the thing is that we have readers that are always accompanied by the audio segment, be it MP3 or CD or anything. So while you listen to the book, you can, follow the words in the sentence, and then afterwards you can read it by yourself. And this is a wonderful technique because you can actually get to invest your mind into accumulating it with intonation, punctuation, word stress. There's so many different things that we can, integrate into reading. Now, let's move on to another part of audio and enhancing someone's abilities, audiobooks, because they're not only audiobooks that have, the text in them. There are audiobooks that you just hear to the book. Okay, you just listen to someone, reading the book aloud. Now, if you're actually wondering, how can this help us? Well, it can stimulate their desire to read. Okay, you can also play a segment in class. For example, the teacher can, start reading the book in class. Okay, maybe the first page, you get them excited, you get them motivated, invested. And then, your kids are going to say, what about the rest of the story? Well, we have the book in the library. Go borrow it. Okay. Now, this is one way of, approaching this theme. Now, audiobooks. There's a huge range of audiobooks online, and most of them are for free. And it's interesting because there are many classic stories based on the CFR. This is a wonderful, how can I say this, invention, the whole idea of the audiobook, because it has been integrated into the CFR, and you can find audiobooks based on various levels from A1 all the way up to C2. And, a student can choose actually what he or she wants to listen to. Now, after listening to the audiobook, and this is where things get really interesting, you can have them work on their productive skills. Remember when I told you bear in mind speaking and writing? So after listening to it, you can have them, talk about it in class, or, do an essay, a summary, anything. So this is what we want to connect the skills. And reading, as you can understand, has many ways of being implemented, okay, even through audio, as I just mentioned. Now, the whole idea of stimulating ideas, our minds, every mind in here, each and every one of us processes information in a different way. So we want to bring words to life. We are creating mental images. The way I process mental images is different from everyone in here. And, each and every one of us is a different individual. So when we're reading a sentence, I can play out the whole scene in my mind, like watching a movie. And this is what helps us understand the, the whole meaning of the text. So there are some books that have text photos, okay, and this will help us a lot. There are captions that add extra information. Always advise your students to study the captions. Now, some minds intricately connect images to ideas, and this is what we want. We are trying to take advantage of every possible way, the potential of each student and how they will process this information. Now, let's move on. Since I mentioned images, have you ever tried adding comic books and graphic novels to your library? I have. I'm very proud of that. I'm a comic book collector. I have a lot of comics, and I always read, I was always invested in readers since I was a kid. My mother used to buy me a lot of readers. I was flipping through the pages, but I always loved comics. So it was something that really, stimulated my mind. And I'd like to share a few images with you. So comics come in various forms. First of all, we have a comic strip here. This one is from Calvin and Hobbes. I hope that, most of you have heard of it. And usually these are 4-panel comic strips. There are also Peanuts, Charlie Brown and Snoopy. And the grammar level and the vocabulary is a perfect match for our students. Their question words, their idioms, expressions, conditionals. We have everything in it. And of course, there's also humor, as you can see in the text. Now, what about graphic novels? I'm proud to say that many publishers, ELT publishers, publish classic, novels in graphic formats. So you can have, kids flipping through the pages, because it's different hearing someone read something that King Arthur, dragged the sword, pulled it out of the stone, but it's different than watching it, on a page and seeing this huge perspective of a man, holding and wielding a sword. The colors, everything, all of these things stimulate our minds and connect things together. Now, having said this, yes, we have to be careful of maturity levels. Of course, ELT publishers are careful of this, but if you're actually thinking of adding comic books to your library, for example, Spider-Man is published in various formats from Marvel Comics. You have a child-friendly, Spider-Man published, which is also used in schools. And you also have Spider-Man, which is, okay, a bit more, graphical to say the least. Now, if you're wondering, where can you order comic books? The only thing I'll say is that there are 12 comic book stores in Athens that actually sell comics in their original English format. Okay, all right, now let's move on. Second theme, interest, how to spark their interest. This is something that I really love. What about the fact that some kids have a lack of enthusiasm, a dislike for reading? I don't want to read this. Or fear of being ridiculed by peers. Now, I mentioned that I like sharing stories. This is a short one. I remember taking my kids once again to the library, and there were 2 boys, and one of them said to the other, "What book are you holding?" And, the other one replied, "Well, this is a book about animals." I can't remember, actually. And, he just answered, "Oh, that's for babies." So he immediately put the book down. He was about to borrow it. So it's the fear of being ridiculed by peers and what other people are going to say about your interests. So we have to be careful of these things and try to make it perfectly clear that you can read any book you want, that interests are of a personal desire, and we should not be racist in this matter. Okay, it's these stereotypes that have to be abolished. Now, how are we going to spark their interest? Short readers. Let's not forget that, our kids have so many activities to do. I mean, they have athletic activities. They're, attending music sessions. They're playing, they have so many things. They also want to play with their friends. I mean, they have a full schedule every day, and we don't want to overwhelm them. If I actually have my kids, borrow a book from the library, which is 24 pages long, 36, they feel happy and content that they managed to read it and bring it back on time. If you actually give them a reader, which is like 80 pages or something, and they don't have time to read it, they will feel like they have failed, not only themselves, but their teacher. So please try not to frustrate them and overwhelm them with huge books. Okay, thank God ELT publishers have a lot of readers that are 24 to 36 pages long. Of course, for older classes, which are higher levels, of course, they have the potential to read it faster. So yes, in those cases, you can, actually use readers that are more of 100 pages long. Okay, now, as I mentioned, varied levels and publishers, so many topics. Why don't you ask your students what they're invested in? If a student wants to, read something about science fiction, just purchase a few books and give them to them. If someone wants to invest himself in reading about animals, for example, yes, that would be nice. I actually share the catalog with my students and ask them, okay, which one of these books would you like me to order? Okay, and they feel this sense of satisfaction upon receiving the book that they ordered, and it's amazing. And of course, I'll say it again, graphic novels, comics should be added to this list. Okay, all right. Now let's move on. Blogs, online articles. I have this, I have this pre-lower class, a B1 plus level, and it's comprised of girls. It's a female class. So at the end of the lesson, if we have time for like 3 or 4 minutes, we will visit online blogs and we will start reading, articles about how to do your nails. Because I have like one girl in class and she really loves doing nails. She does, everyone's nails. And we read, techniques and stuff, and we read it aloud in class. It's like, it's really inspiring to them because the language of the blogs that we usually read are about the B2, B2 plus level. So it's quite of a challenge for them and they really enjoy it. Now, let's move on. Next one. Combining reading with personal development. Now, we should integrate them with class presentations. What do I mean by this? If you have a reader, your student has, took it home, read it, enjoyed it, have the student the next week present it. When we're doing presentations, we are improving our personal skills, that of speaking, presenting in front of an audience, okay, which is very important, compiling notes, organizing ourselves, because let's not forget that we are creating the citizens of tomorrow, okay, and we want to prepare them for all these challenges that they'll meet in life in their daily jobs. Now, we can also have fun while doing it, role play, inspire them to act it out. Okay, so you can have, like someone play a specific role, or in many cases, there are multiple roles in a book. So I actually advise this technique for books readers that have, many characters in them. And in this case, we have like 3, 4, 5 characters, okay? And of course, there are some publishers, I really like this. I'm actually working for one that has this. They have puppet theaters. And, that's where, kids really let themselves loose and they actually invest themselves and learn the lines by heart, and they start using proper intonation and stressing the words that they should, and they really love it. Now, mindset, the third theme. Let's move on with this, adopting the proper mindset, the internal conversation a student has with himself. What's going on in his mind when he's grabbing that reader? So there are questions that he asks himself that are kind of negative, okay, because a negative mindset hinders any possibility of reading. Now, sometimes a student might ask himself, you're reading too slow, or you're a bad reader, or even worse, you're not as smart as the others. I'll share something with you. Yes, I am an educated woman. I've written more than 28 books. I love my job, but I was a slow reader. I always needed images to process the ideas. I was playing out scenes in my mind. So I was kind of slow because I really wanted to enjoy each moment of it. It doesn't mean that I'm not smart, that you're not smart. Everyone has their own pace of reading, the way we process information, and we have to have our students understand what we're meaning by this, that, it's okay to read slow. Now, oh my God, this picture is really sad. Okay, so reading is not mandatory. All right, if a student is frustrated and can't read, do not pressure him. If the time comes that he wants, to start, speaking his voice, that time will come. Don't add to the pressure. Try to encourage this kid, applaud his efforts, and of course, set achievable goals. Why not offer the kid to read just one sentence? It doesn't have to be a whole page or a whole paragraph. And of course, take turns in reading. This will help, kids in class because they're all part of a team, one after the other, and they feel like they're doing something together. Now, something else that I'd like to add at this point, when we're talking about encouragement, I remember I had a student 2 years ago, actually, who had a huge problem with reading. However, he was so proud when he did it. And when he started reading, his punctuation wasn't that good. It was okay. It was kind of horrible, but it doesn't matter. He tried really hard. And the thing is that he used, proper stress whenever he could. He was smiling and he was the first student to raise his hand. And I applaud his efforts. And in my mind and in my heart, he was an excellent student because he always participated. Now, the thing is that some of his classmates at first tried to correct him because he wasn't, reading properly. Always try to correct your kids when they finish, not during the time that they're reading aloud, because it will disrupt their train of thought. Now, the thing is that I made this perfectly clear with my students. Do not interrupt anyone. Do not reprimand each other. And at the end, they always applauded his efforts. So he was confident and he tried. And that's what we want. Now, let's move on. This is the final part of this presentation. It has to do with fun strategies and games. I love this segment. You're going to enjoy what I have for you. First of all, kinesthetic learning. I know that most of you have heard of this. We talked about visual, we talked about auditory. What about kinesthetic? How can we implement this in reading? Of course we can. Read a story to your students. Let them choose their favorite scene. Then read it again together. After that, act it out. Your kids are going to get a kick out of it. They're going to really enjoy this one. And of course, they unknowingly recite and learn elements of the story. Okay, because as they're, reciting it and, acting it out, they'll start, learning things by heart, and they won't even understand, the fact that they have been, learning English. Of course, they see it as a game, not an obligation. And this is what we want, because a lot of students see things as obligation. And of course, a scene can be open to various interpretations. You can add emotions to it. And this is what we want. We want variety in the way that they interpret the text and, of course, the whole meaning behind the scenes. Let's move on. Now, sentence stress. This is a second kind of game that we're going to use. I really love this one. Have students read aloud various lines in different ways. Okay, how are we going to do this? Well, let them experiment with different emotions and act it out. Now, I'm not saying that we're actors, but you can actually get the idea after I show you an example. So, word stress, sentence stress, intonation. Let's do this. You'll be amazed and excited at what you're going to see, as well as the students. They're going to love it. So this is a sentence that I'm going to use, okay? And I think that most of you have seen this sentence in the past. It's a fun little game to show your students. Please share this sentence with your kids and act it out. The sentence is, I didn't say he stole the money. I would like to ask you, the audience, how many different ways do we have of stressing this sentence? Now, some of you might say 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Well, I'm going to blow your minds. The answer is 7. 1 for each word stress. Yes, let me act it out for you. I didn't say he stole the money. Someone else did. I didn't say he stole the money. I implied it. I didn't say he stole the money. Okay, maybe I wrote it down or anything. I didn't say he stole the money. I implied that someone else did. I didn't say he stole the money. Maybe he borrowed it. I didn't say he stole the money. Okay, maybe it's some other cache of money. And finally, I didn't say he stole the money. Maybe he stole some jewelry. Okay, all right. Now, so we have 7 different ways of doing this technique. And some of them could have another meaning based on how I stress the word. Okay, because when we're acting out the sentence, the way we use intonation, stress marks, it can completely, change the meaning. Now, let's move on. Character description challenge. This is a fun one. I love it. We've done it many times in class. Read a story to your students. And after you read the story, have a student choose one of the characters, but not share it with the others. Okay. Don't give the name away. And as the student is describing it to the others, for example, she's tall and has blonde hair. Who is she? So for example, we might be reading a graphic novel about Supergirl. Okay, so the answer is Supergirl. All right, and it's fun. Just try to choose readers that have like more than 4 or 5 characters in it, so you can have variation and have more options to choose from. Now, I don't have to stress the importance of reading to you all. You know what I'm going to say. It broadens our horizons and expands our imagination, leading to creativity. You are aware of this. You are teachers. You are preparing the citizens of the future. It boosts our self-esteem, sets the stones for a solid professional career. The reason I'm sharing this information with you is that if you see students that are frustrated, if they're stressed, don't give up on them. Trust me, there are options to help them reach their full potential. Use audio, visual implementations, okay? Play it as a game. There are so many ways to do this. And of course, they will improve as students. Okay, so having said this, I'd like to thank you for your time. It's been wonderful having you all here. I wish you a wonderful weekend and thank you for all. Goodbye, everyone.